The sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Grand Palace Hotel, casting long golden rectangles across the marble floor. In one of these warm patches of light stood Lily Chen, a small 12-year-old girl with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She waited quietly while her mother spoke with Mrs. Dempsey, the head of housekeeping. "I'm sorry to bring her today," Lily's mother said in a hushed voice. "The babysitter canceled at the last minute and I couldn't find anyone else." Mrs. Dempsey glanced at Lily, who pretended not to listen. "It's fine for today, Wei. Just make sure she stays out of trouble. We have that charity event tonight in the main ballroom." Lily's mother nodded gratefully. "She is a good girl. Very quiet. She will just read her book while I work." As her mother disappeared down the hallway with her cleaning cart, Lily clutched her worn backpack closer to her chest. It contained a dog-eared paperback, a small sketch pad, and a few colored pencils, enough to keep her busy for the next few hours. "You can sit in the staff break room," Mrs. Dempsey told her, pointing down a different hallway. "There's a vending machine if you get hungry." "Thank you," Lily said softly. The break room was small and smelled of microwave popcorn. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead, and the plastic chair felt sticky against Lily's legs. After 30 minutes of trying to read the same page of her book, she closed it with a sigh. The hotel was huge. Surely there was somewhere more interesting to wait. Slipping out of the break room, Lily walked down the carpeted hallway. She passed guest rooms being cleaned, storage closets filled with towels and tiny shampoo bottles, and a laundry room where massive machines tumbled with white sheets. No one paid much attention to her, just another employee's kid staying out of the way. At the end of the hallway, Lily found herself facing two enormous wooden doors, polished to a high shine. Unlike the other doors she'd passed, these weren't marked staff only or storage. Curious, she pushed one open just enough to peek inside. Her breath caught in her throat. The room beyond was the biggest she had ever seen. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling painted with clouds and angels. The floors were marble with intricate patterns that reminded Lily of the kaleidoscope she'd gotten for her birthday last year. Tables covered in white cloth dotted the room, each one decorated with fresh flowers and tiny sparkling lights. But what drew Lily's eye was the stage at the far end of the room. And on that stage sat a piano. Not just any piano, but a gleaming black grand piano that seemed to pull her forward like a magnet. Lily looked behind her. The hallway was empty. She slipped inside, letting the heavy door close with barely a sound. The ballroom was eerily quiet compared to the bustling hallways. Her footsteps echoed as she walked across the empty space, making her feel both tiny and somehow important at the same time. As she got closer to the stage, she noticed people moving around at the edges of the room, waiters setting up a bar, florists arranging centerpieces, technicians checking microphones. They were all too busy to notice one small girl. 3 wooden steps led up to the stage. Lily climbed them slowly, her heart beating faster with each step. The piano waited for her, its lid propped open like a giant black wing. For as long as she could remember, Lily had loved music. When she was 6, her kindergarten classroom had an old upright piano, and their teacher would play simple songs during circle time. Lily had been fascinated by how the teacher's fingers could create such beautiful sounds. At home, she would practice on their kitchen table, pretending the flat surface was a keyboard. Last year, after months of extra shifts at the hotel, Lily's mother had surprised her with a small electronic keyboard. It wasn't fancy, just 61 keys and a few demo songs, but to Lily it was everything. She'd taught herself to play using free videos online, practicing late into the night with headphones so she wouldn't disturb their neighbors in the thin-walled apartment. Now, standing before a real grand piano for the first time, Lily felt a mixture of awe and longing. Without thinking, she reached out and touched one of the keys. The note rang out, richer and deeper than anything her small keyboard at home could produce. "Wow," she whispered. She looked around again, but no one seemed to have noticed the sound. Taking a deep breath, Lily slipped onto the bench. It was too tall for her. Her feet dangled above the floor, but she didn't care. Gently, she placed her hands on the keys, feeling their cool, smooth surface beneath her fingertips. The piano at home was mostly for practice. This was what music was supposed to sound like. Lily closed her eyes and played a single chord, one she had practiced hundreds of times. The sound filled the ballroom, bouncing off the high ceiling and marble floors. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever heard. "What do you think you're doing?" The sharp voice made Lily jump. She turned to see a woman with short blonde hair and glasses standing at the edge of the stage, a tablet in her hand and a frown on her face. "I'm sorry," Lily stammered, immediately pulling her hands away from the keys. That piano is worth more than most people's houses," the woman said, her voice cold. "It's been tuned specially for tonight's event. No one is supposed to touch it." Lily felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "I didn't mean to." "Lisa, is there a problem?" A man in a dark suit approached, looking between Lily and the blonde woman with curiosity. "Just one of the staff's kids touching the Steinway," Lisa replied with a sigh. "I've got it handled." The man glanced at Lily, who was now standing beside the piano, wishing she could disappear. "We'll make sure she doesn't damage anything. The guest will start arriving for pre-event drinks in less than an hour." "I would never damage it," Lily said quietly, but neither adult seemed to hear her. As the man walked away, Lisa climbed the steps to the stage. "Look," she said, her voice a little softer now. "You need to go back to wherever you're supposed to be. This room is off limits until the event starts." Lily nodded, blinking back tears. "I understand. I've never seen a real grand piano before." Something in Lisa's expression changed slightly. "You play?" "A little," Lily admitted. "I have a keyboard at home. Nothing like this, though." Lisa seemed to consider this for a moment. She checked her watch and then looked back at Lily. "What's your name?" "Lily Chen. My mom cleans rooms on the 3rd floor." "Well, Lily Chen, I don't have time to escort you back to the staff area right now. I've got about 50 other fires to put out before this gala starts." She tapped her tablet thoughtfully. "Tell you what, if you promise to sit quietly in that corner over there and not touch anything else, you can stay and watch the setup. Sometimes we have a pianist play during the cocktail hour, but he canceled last minute." "The piano's just for show tonight." Lily's eyes widened. "Really, I can stay?" "Just until your mom's shift ends," Lisa said firmly. "And remember, no touching anything." "I promise," Lily said quickly, before Lisa could change her mind. As Lisa hurried off to deal with some crisis involving the floral arrangements, Lily made her way to the corner she'd been assigned. From there, she had a perfect view of the entire ballroom and the piano. Over the next half hour, the empty room transformed. Staff rolled in round tables covered in sparkling decorations. The bar in the corner came alive with bottles of colorful liquids and gleaming glasses. Men in black suits tested microphones and adjusted lights. Women in elegant dresses arranged name cards and programs on a table by the entrance. And then the guests began to arrive. They came in 2s and 3s at first, then in larger groups. Women in flowing dresses and sparkling jewelry. Men in suits that looked nothing like the rumpled one her mother had found for Lily at the thrift store for school concerts. They laughed loudly and clinked glasses filled with golden liquid. None of them noticed Lily sitting quietly in her corner, watching everything with wide eyes. She felt like she was peeking into another world, one where people wore shoes that probably cost more than her mother made in a week and talked about summer homes and boarding schools. A group of teenagers entered, looking bored despite their fancy clothes. They were older than Lily, maybe 15 or 16, and immediately formed their own circle away from the adults. Lily watched them curiously. One boy, tall with carefully styled hair, seemed to be the leader. The others laughed at everything he said. As the ballroom filled with people and noise, Lily's eyes kept returning to the piano. It sat alone on the stage, untouched and perfect. Such a shame, she thought, for something so beautiful to just sit there unused. The busy staff had forgotten about her. Lisa was nowhere to be seen. And the piano was calling to her. Before she could change her mind, Lily stood up and began making her way back toward the stage. Lily's heart pounded as she weaved between guests in fancy clothes, trying to look like she belonged there. Nobody paid attention to her. She was practically invisible in her simple blue jeans and faded t-shirt. The noise in the ballroom had grown louder, with clinking glasses and laughter bouncing off the walls. Music played softly from hidden speakers, but it was just background noise that nobody really listened to. The stage looked farther away now that the room was full of people. Twice Lily nearly turned back. What was she thinking? She'd promised Lisa she wouldn't touch anything else. But the piano kept pulling her forward, like it was meant for her fingers alone. When she reached the steps to the stage, Lily paused and looked around one last time. The hotel staff were all busy serving drinks or carrying trays of tiny foods. Lisa was nowhere to be seen. Taking a deep breath, Lily climbed the steps as quietly as she could. The piano looked even more beautiful up close. Under the warm stage lights, its black surface shone like a mirror. Lily's reflection stared back at her, a small girl with determined eyes. She slid onto the bench, her feet once again dangling above the floor. The room behind her continued to buzz with conversation, no one noticing the girl on stage. Lily placed her fingers gently on the keys, not pressing down yet, just feeling their cool smoothness. She closed her eyes and imagined she was home with her keyboard, practicing in the quiet of her bedroom. "Hey, look at that." A boy's voice cut through Lily's concentration. She opened her eyes to see the group of teenagers she'd noticed earlier, standing at the edge of the stage, watching her with amused expressions. The tall boy who seemed to be their leader pointed at Lily and snickered. "What's the help doing at the piano?" Lily froze, her hands hovering above the keys. She noticed the cleaning staff badge still clipped to her backpack strap, the one her mother had given her so she wouldn't get stopped by security. Her cheeks grew hot. "I was just—" Lily started, but her voice came out as a whisper. A girl with perfectly straight hair tilted her head. "Did you hear something?" she asked loudly. "I think the little maid is trying to speak." Laughter rippled through the group. The tall boy took out his phone and pointed it at Lily. "This is going on my story. Room cleaner thinks she's at Carnegie Hall." More people were turning now, curious about the commotion. Lily's hands began to tremble. She should get up, run away, find her mother, but her body wouldn't move. "My dad paid $10,000 for our table tonight," another boy said, loud enough for nearby adults to hear. "And now we get entertainment from the housekeeping staff." The laughter spread wider. Some adults were smiling now too, wine glasses in hand, watching the scene unfold with mild amusement. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "Perhaps she's going to clean it for us," the straight-haired girl said, making a show of checking for dust on the piano surface. Lily's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. She stared at the keys, wishing she could disappear. Her mother would be so disappointed. She had broken her promise to Lisa, and now she was causing a scene that could get her mother in trouble. "What's going on here?" Lisa pushed through the crowd, her tablet still in hand. Her eyes widened when she saw Lily at the piano. "I thought I told you to stay in the corner and not touch anything," she said sharply. "Oh, is she yours?" the tall boy asked with a smirk. "You should keep better track of your staff's kids." Lisa's lips thinned. "This area is off limits to everyone except tonight's performers." She gestured for Lily to come down from the stage. "Come on, let's find your mother." The teenagers moved aside, still snickering. Lily could feel dozens of eyes on her as she stood up from the piano bench, her legs shaky. "Wait," the new voice came from the back of the crowd. People parted to reveal a thin woman with gray hair tied in a bun. She wore a simple black dress and carried herself with quiet authority. Lily recognized her immediately from the framed photo in Mrs. Dempsey's office. Mrs. Rivera, the hotel owner. "What's your name, child?" Mrs. Rivera asked, her voice gentle but firm. "Lily Chen, ma'am," Lily replied, her voice barely audible. Mrs. Rivera approached the stage slowly. "And why are you at my piano, Lily Chen?" The room had gone quiet. Even the teenagers had stopped laughing, suddenly aware that something important was happening. Lily swallowed hard. I play a little at home. I just wanted to feel what a real piano was like." Mrs. Rivera studied her for a long moment. "Do you know what event this is tonight?" Lily shook her head. "It's a fundraiser for the City Youth Arts Program," Mrs. Rivera said. "We're raising money to bring music, art, and dance to children who wouldn't otherwise have access to them." She glanced at the group of teenagers, who suddenly seemed very interested in their shoes. Children who might never get to touch a real piano. Turning back to Lily, Mrs. Rivera's expression softened slightly. "Do you actually play, or were you just curious about the keys?" Lily looked down at her hands. "I play. Not very well, but I practice every day." Mrs. Rivera nodded thoughtfully. "We had a pianist scheduled for the cocktail hour, but he canceled. The piano has been sitting there waiting for someone." She glanced around the room, then back at Lily. "Would you play something for us? Just one piece?" Lily's eyes widened in shock. "Me, but I've never played for anyone except my mom. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from unexpected places. Mrs. Rivera said. She turned to address the room. Ladies and gentlemen, while we wait for dinner to be served, we have a special impromptu performance. Mrs. Rivera, Lisa whispered urgently. Are you sure this is a good idea? She's just what, Lisa? Mrs. Rivera asked calmly. Just a child? Just the daughter of one of our staff? Isn't that exactly who tonight's fundraiser is meant to help? Lisa fell silent. Lily stood frozen on the stage, panic rising in her chest. The crowd was watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. The teenagers who had mocked her were whispering to each other, smirking as if they expected her to fail. Near the back of the room, a movement caught Lily's eye. Her mother had appeared in the doorway, still wearing her cleaning uniform. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and Lily saw the confusion and worry on her mother's face. I can't, Lily whispered, starting to step away from the piano. You can, a deep voice said. An old man with kind eyes had moved to stand beside Mrs. Rivera. Music belongs to everyone, young lady, not just to those who can afford lessons. Mrs. Rivera nodded. One piece, Lily, whatever you know best. Lily looked back at her mother, who gave her a small, uncertain nod. Taking a deep breath, Lily turned and sat back down at the piano. The bench felt enormous beneath her, the keys stretching out like an impossible challenge. The room was completely silent now. Lily could feel every eye on her, waiting for her to fail, to embarrass herself further. The teenagers were still watching, phones ready to record her humiliation. Lily closed her eyes. She thought about her small keyboard at home, about the hours she'd spent practicing after school, about the YouTube videos she'd watched over and over, until her fingers could find the right keys without looking. She thought about her mother working extra shifts to buy that keyboard, about the pride in her eyes when Lily mastered a new song. Opening her eyes, Lily placed her hands on the keys. The piece she knew best was Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It was the first classical piece she'd taught herself, working through it measure by measure, night after night. On her small keyboard at home, it sounded thin and electronic. But here, on this magnificent instrument, Lily took one more deep breath and began to play. The first notes filled the ballroom, clear and pure. Lily's small fingers moved carefully, finding their way across the unfamiliar keyboard. The opening melody rose and fell, gentle and dreamlike. For the first few measures, she played cautiously, afraid of making a mistake. Then slowly, the music began to take over. The rich sound of the grand piano surrounded her, lifting her beyond the crowded room, beyond the staring eyes and whispered comments. Her fingers grew more confident, coaxing emotion from each note. The piece moved through her like a living thing, breathing with her, rising and falling with her heart. She forgot about the teenagers, about Lisa and Mrs. Rivera, about the crowd of wealthy strangers. She even forgot about her mother watching from the back. There was only the music, flowing from her fingers as naturally as water. As the final part of the piece approached, Lily felt tears on her cheeks, but they weren't tears of shame anymore. They were tears of joy, joy that such beauty could exist in the world, and that somehow, against all odds, she could be part of creating it. The last notes hung in the air, gentle and fading like the end of a dream. For one heartbeat, the ballroom remained perfectly silent. Then the world crashed back in. The silence lasted only a moment before the room erupted in thunderous applause. The sound hit Lily like a physical force, snapping her back to reality. She blinked, disoriented, as if waking from a dream. The faces that had looked at her with mockery or doubt now stared with astonishment. Hands that had held phones to record her failure now clapped with genuine enthusiasm. Lily sat frozen on the bench, unsure what to do. No one had ever applauded for her before. The feeling was overwhelming, a wave of emotion that left her breathless. Mrs. Rivera approached the stage, her eyes shining. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying across the ballroom without a microphone, "I believe we've just witnessed exactly why tonight's fundraiser matters." She turned to Lily. "Where did you learn to play like that, my dear?" Lily's voice trembled. I taught myself. From videos. I practice on my keyboard at home." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Rivera raised her eyebrows. "Self-taught? No lessons at all?" Lily shook her head. "We can't afford lessons." Another wave of whispers moved through the audience. Mrs. Rivera smiled and addressed the crowd again. Tonight we're raising money for the City Youth Arts Program, which provides music, art, and dance instruction to children who might otherwise never discover their talents. She gestured toward Lily. I think we've just seen why this program is so vital. The applause started again, even louder than before. Lily's cheeks burned, but this time not from shame. She searched the crowd for her mother and found her still standing near the back, hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Lily. The voice came from beside her. Lily turned to see a tall black woman in a deep blue dress standing at the edge of the stage. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun and she wore a silver pin shaped like a music note on her collar. My name is Dr. Powell, she said, extending her hand to Lily. I'm the director of the City Conservatory of Music. Lily hesitantly shook the woman's hand, feeling small and overwhelmed. That was Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, wasn't it? Dr. Powell asked. Lily nodded. It's my favorite piece. It's not an easy piece, especially for someone without formal training. Dr. Powell studied her with intense eyes. Would you play something else for me? Lily glanced at Mrs. Rivera, who nodded encouragingly. The crowd had gone quiet again, waiting. She thought for a moment, then nodded. I know the first movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Dr. Powell's eyebrows rose slightly. Please, she said, gesturing to the piano. Taking a deep breath, Lily turned back to the keys. This piece was different from the Nocturne, darker, more mysterious. Her fingers found the opening notes, the famous triplets that created the gentle, rolling motion like moonlight on water. As she played, Lily felt more confident than before. The piano no longer seemed so intimidating, and her fingers moved with greater assurance across the keys. The music flowed from someplace deep inside her, a place she couldn't explain with words. When she finished, Dr. Powell was nodding slowly, a look of quiet amazement on her face. Lily, she said, how long have you been playing? About 2 years, Lily replied. Since my mom got me my keyboard. Dr. Powell exchanged a look with Mrs. Rivera. And you've never had any formal instruction? No theory lessons, no technique training? Lily shook her head. Just videos and free apps on our computer at the library. The group of teenagers who had mocked her earlier stood to the side, looking uncomfortable. The tall boy had put his phone away, his smirk replaced by a look of grudging respect. Dr. Powell turned to address the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've witnessed tonight is extraordinary. This young lady has accomplished in 2 years of self-study what many of my students at the conservatory struggled to achieve after 5 years of professional instruction. She turned back to Lily. You have a rare gift, a gift that shouldn't be left undeveloped because of financial circumstances. Mrs. Rivera stepped forward. Dr. Powell is right, and that's precisely why we're all here tonight. She addressed the crowd again. Our goal was to raise $50,000 for the Youth Arts Program. After witnessing Lily's performance, I'm personally doubling my donation. Who will join me? Hands shot up around the room. A man near the front called out, Put me down for another 10,000. 5,000 here. We'll match that. Lily watched in stunned silence as the pledges continued. Mrs. Rivera was beaming. Lisa was frantically recording numbers on her tablet, and Dr. Powell stood beside Lily, a hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Your playing has opened their wallets, Dr. Powell said quietly. But more importantly, you've opened their eyes. That's the true power of music. It makes people see beyond their assumptions. Lily spotted her mother making her way through the crowd, still in her cleaning uniform. People stepped aside respectfully as she approached, a few even nodding to her with new recognition. When she reached the stage, Lily's mother climbed the steps and wrapped her arms around her daughter. I'm so proud of you, she whispered in Mandarin. So proud. Lily hugged her back tightly. I'm sorry if I got you in trouble, she whispered. Her mother laughed softly. I don't think anyone will be complaining about you tonight. Dr. Powell cleared her throat gently. Mrs. Chen, my name is Dr. Powell. I'm the director of the City Conservatory of Music. She paused, glancing between mother and daughter. Your daughter has extraordinary talent. The kind we rarely encounter. Lily's mother nodded, her hands protectively on Lily's shoulders. She practices very hard. Natural talent must be combined with hard work to truly flourish, Dr. Powell agreed. But Lily has something special beyond both. She has a rare understanding of the emotional heart of the music. She hesitated, then continued. I'd like to offer Lily a full scholarship to study at the conservatory's Saturday program. It includes private lessons, music theory, and performance opportunities. Lily gasped. Her mother's grip on her shoulders tightened. We couldn't accept such generosity, her mother said softly. It's not charity, Dr. Powell said firmly. It's an investment in exceptional talent. The conservatory exists to nurture gifts like Lily's. She smiled. Besides, after tonight's impromptu performance, I suspect the scholarship fund will be considerably larger than it was yesterday. Mrs. Rivera joined them. The transportation might be an issue, though. Where do you live, Mrs. Chen? West Side Apartments, Lily's mother replied. Bus number 16, then number 8. Mrs. Rivera nodded. That's over an hour each way. She thought for a moment. What if we arranged a car service? Part of the scholarship, Dr. Powell nodded. Absolutely. We want to remove all barriers. Lily looked up at her mother, hardly daring to hope. Mom? Her mother's eyes filled with tears again. You would do this? For my daughter? For all our daughters, Mrs. Rivera said quietly. And sons. Every child deserves the chance to discover and develop their gifts. She gestured around the ballroom. That's why we're here tonight. Dr. Powell handed Lily's mother a business card. We can discuss all the details tomorrow. For now, she turned to Lily with a smile. Would you honor us with one more piece before dinner is served? Lily looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. The audience was watching expectantly, many of them still wiping tears from their eyes. Even the teenagers looked genuinely interested now, their earlier mockery forgotten. The tall boy caught her eye and gave her a small, apologetic nod. The straight-haired girl beside him mouthed, "Sorry." Lily turned back to the piano, feeling a new confidence flow through her. For the first time in her life, she was being seen, really seen for who she was and what she could do. She chose Debussy's Clair de Lune this time. As her fingers touched the keys, she felt as if she were playing not just for the wealthy guests or for Dr. Powell, but for every kid like her who had never been given a chance. For her mother, who worked so hard to give her opportunities. For herself, the self she was just beginning to discover. The delicate notes floated through the ballroom, creating a moment of perfect beauty. In that moment, Lily understood that her life had changed forever. The hotel ballroom that had been the scene of her humiliation just minutes ago had become the doorway to a future she had never dared to imagine. As the final notes of Debussy faded away, Lily knew that she had found her voice. Not in words, but in music, and the world was finally ready to listen. 6 months had passed since the night at the Grand Palace Hotel. Lily sat at a glossy black upright piano in a practice room at the City Conservatory of Music, sunlight streaming through tall windows onto her sheet music. The room smelled of wood polish and old books, a smell she had come to love. Again, said Mr. Gao, her piano teacher. But this time think about what the composer was trying to say. Lily nodded and repositioned her hands. Mr. Gao was strict but kind, with wire-rimmed glasses and hands that could stretch to play impossibly wide chords. He had been teaching piano for over 40 years, and Lily was his youngest student. She began Bach's Prelude in C major again, trying to feel the flowing notes rather than just play them. The piece seemed simple on paper, just arpeggios moving up and down the keyboard, but Mr. Gao insisted there was a whole universe inside those seemingly basic patterns. When she finished, Mr. Gao nodded slowly. Better. You're beginning to hear it now, not just play it. He tapped the sheet music with a pencil. Bach was a mathematician as well as a musician. There's perfect order in this piece, like the movement of planets or the structure of a snowflake. Lily smiled. Mr. Gao always talked this way, finding connections between music and everything else in the world. At first she hadn't understood, but gradually, she was beginning to see what he meant. Next week we'll start on the fugue, Mr. Gao said, making notes in his leather-bound notebook. Practice the prelude every day, but don't just repeat it. Listen to it. Ask yourself what each phrase is saying. Yes, Mr. Gao, Lily said, carefully placing the music in her folder. As she packed up her bag, Mr. Gao cleared his throat. Dr. Powell mentioned the spring recital to you? Lily nodded, her stomach tightening at the thought. She said all scholarship students are expected to perform. You don't seem excited, Mr. Gao observed, studying her face. Lily looked down at her hands. I've never played in a real recital before. What if I mess up? What if everyone realizes I don't belong here? Mr. Gao was quiet for a moment. Then he said, when I was about your age in Shanghai, I played my first big concert. I was so nervous I forgot to bow before sitting at the piano. He smiled at the memory. My teacher was horrified. But then I played and nobody remembered the missing bow. They only remembered the music. He closed his notebook. You belong here, Lily Chen. Not because of that night at the hotel, but because of what you do every day since. The hours of practice, the questions you ask, the way you listen. He pointed to the piano. The instrument doesn't care where you come from or how much money your parents have. It only cares about how you touch its keys and whether you respect the music. Lily felt her eyes sting with tears. I'm trying to be worthy of this chance. You already are, Mr. Gao said simply. Now go. Your mother will be waiting. Outside the conservatory, the Saturday afternoon sun warmed the spring air. Lily spotted her mother sitting on a bench near the entrance, reading a book. Since Lily had started at the conservatory, her mother had used the 3 hours of lesson time to study English at the library nearby. How was your lesson? Her mother asked as Lily approached. Good. Mr. Gao says I'm starting to hear the music, not just play it. Her mother smiled. High praise from him. She checked her watch. We have time before the car comes. Want to get ice cream? They walked to the small shop on the corner, where the owner now recognized them as Saturday regulars. As they sat at a table outside with their cones, Lily noticed a group of conservatory students walking past, instrument cases slung over their shoulders. One of them, a tall girl with curly hair, waved at Lily. Who's that? Her mother asked. Zoe, she plays violin. We have music theory class together. Her mother raised an eyebrow. A friend? Lily shrugged, licking her ice cream. Maybe. She's nice to me. She hadn't told her mother about the other side of life at the conservatory, the whispers, the curious stares, the occasional comment about her scholarship or her clothes, which weren't as fancy as what the other kids wore. Most of the students were nice enough, but Lily could feel the divide between herself and them, a divide made of more than just music. They lived in big houses with practice rooms and attended private schools. They'd had music lessons since they were 4 or 5, with expensive instruments and parents who could help with their homework. Lily sometimes felt like a visitor from another planet. The spring recital is next month, Lily said, changing the subject. Mr. Gao wants me to play a Bach prelude and fugue. That sounds important, her mother said, pride evident in her voice. All the parents will be there, and donors to the scholarship program. Lily stared at her ice cream, watching as it melted slightly in the sun. Dr. Powell says some of the people from the hotel that night will come too. Her mother reached across the table and took Lily's hand. You will play beautifully, just like you did that night. That was different, Lily said quietly. I didn't have time to be scared. I just played. She looked up at her mother. Now I have weeks to worry about it. Her mother squeezed her hand. When I first came to this country, I was scared every day. New language, new customs, everything strange. She smiled softly. But I got up each morning and did what needed doing. That's all courage is, Lily. Feeling afraid but doing it anyway. The car service that was part of Lily's scholarship arrived to take them home. The driver, a friendly man named Hector who usually worked the Saturday shift, greeted them warmly. On the ride back to their apartment, Lily watched the city change outside her window, from the tree-lined streets near the conservatory to the busy commercial areas, and finally to their neighborhood with its worn apartment buildings and small shops with signs in multiple languages. At home, Lily went straight to her keyboard. The scholarship had included money for better equipment, and now she had an 88-key digital piano with weighted keys that felt much more like a real piano than her old keyboard had. It sat in the corner of the living room, the most expensive thing they owned. She began her practice routine, starting with scales and arpeggios, then moving on to the Bach prelude Mr. Gao had assigned. As she played, her mind wandered back to the hotel ballroom, to the feeling of the grand piano under her fingers, to the silence after she finished playing and before the applause began. So much had changed since that night. Her days were now divided between regular school and music studies. 3 afternoons a week, a tutor paid for by the scholarship fund helped her with homework, especially English and math. Saturdays were spent at the conservatory for piano lessons with Mr. Gao, music theory classes, and ensemble practice. Sundays often found her back at her keyboard working through the week's assignments. Sometimes it felt overwhelming. The other students at the conservatory had years of advantage over her, and Lily worked twice as hard trying to catch up. There were moments when she wondered if it was worth it. If she should just go back to being a regular kid who played piano for fun. But then there were the other moments. The times when music flowed through her like magic. When a piece suddenly made sense in a way that went beyond notes on a page. When Mr. Gao nodded with quiet approval at something she played. In those moments, Lily knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The apartment door opened and her mother came in with groceries. "Still practicing?" she asked with a smile. Lily nodded. "Mr. Gao says Bach was a mathematician. The music has patterns like planets moving or snowflakes forming." Her mother set down the bags. "Your teacher is a poet as well as a musician, it seems." She began unpacking vegetables for dinner. "Will you play for me while I cook? What do you want to hear?" Her mother thought for a moment. "The Chopin piece. The one from that night." Lily positioned her hands and began the nocturne in E-flat major. As she played, she remembered the faces in the ballroom, first mocking, then astonished. She remembered Dr. Powell's intense gaze, Mrs. Rivera's knowing smile, the teenager's grudging respect. Most of all, she remembered her mother's tears of pride. The memory gave her new confidence. She would play at the recital, and yes, she might be scared, but she would do it anyway, because that's what courage was, feeling afraid but doing it anyway. As the last notes of the nocturne faded, her mother looked up from chopping vegetables, eyes shining. "Beautiful," she said softly. "Even more beautiful than the first time," Lily smiled. "I think I'm starting to hear it now, not just play it." Her mother nodded. "That's because you're finding your own voice in the music. And that, my Lily, is what makes it art." The day of the spring recital arrived with sunshine and a gentle breeze that carried the scent of blooming flowers. Backstage at the conservatory's concert hall, Lily sat quietly on a folding chair watching the other students prepare. Some paced nervously, others practiced finger movements in the air, and a few chatted confidently as if this were just another day. Lily wore a simple blue dress her mother had bought specially for the occasion. It wasn't as fancy as what the other girls were wearing, no sparkles or layers of tulle. But it was the nicest thing she'd ever owned, and when she'd tried it on at home, her mother had teared up and said she looked like a real pianist. Nervous? Lily looked up to see Zoe, her friend from music theory class. Zoe's curly hair was pulled back with a silver clip, and she carried her violin case like a precious treasure. Terrified, Lily admitted. "You," Zoe shrugged. "My fourth recital here. It gets easier." "Kind of." She sat down next to Lily. "Remember what Dr. Chen said in theory class last week? About performance anxiety?" Lily nodded. "She said it's just excitement in disguise." "Try to believe that," Zoe said with a smile. She glanced toward the stage door where they could hear the muffled sounds of the audience arriving. "Full house today. My mom says all the big donors are here." Lily's stomach tightened. "Dr. Powell told me some people from that night at the hotel are coming. To see how their money was spent, I guess." "Cool," Zoe said. "Like your own personal fan club." Lily managed a weak smile. She hadn't told any of her classmates the full story of that night. How she'd been mocked, how close she'd come to running away in shame. They knew she'd been discovered playing at a hotel fundraiser, but not the humiliation that had come before the triumph. Dr. Powell appeared in the doorway, elegant in a dark suit, clipboard in hand. "Places, everyone. We start in 10 minutes. She caught Lily's eye and gave her an encouraging nod. The recital began with the youngest students, 7- and 8-year-olds playing simple pieces with concentrated expressions. Next came the intermediate group, playing more complex works with growing confidence. Lily was scheduled near the end, among the advanced students. Despite being newer to the program, Mr. Gao had insisted she belonged there. As her turn approached, Lily felt her hands grow cold and her heart race. She closed her eyes and tried to remember everything Mr. Gao had taught her about the Bach prelude and fugue. The mathematical precision, the interweaving voices, the hidden patterns that made it more than just notes on a page. Next, Dr. Powell announced to the audience, "Lily Chen will perform Bach's Prelude and Fugue in C major from the Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1. Lily walked onto the stage, her legs feeling strangely distant as if they belonged to someone else. The concert hall was larger than she'd realized during rehearsals. with rows of faces watching expectantly. The grand piano waited at center stage, its lid raised to project the sound. As she approached the bench, Lily spotted her mother in the front row, sitting next to Mrs. Rivera from the hotel. Behind them, she recognized other faces from that night. Dr. Powell, of course, and even the teenagers who had mocked her. They looked different now, less intimidating somehow. Lily took a deep breath, sat down at the piano, and placed her hands on the keys. The hall fell silent, that special kind of silence that comes when a room full of people holds its breath at once. For a terrible moment, Lily's mind went blank. The notes she had practiced hundreds of times seemed to vanish from her memory. Panic rose in her chest. Then she heard Mr. Gao's voice in her head. The instrument doesn't care where you come from. It only cares about how you touch its keys and whether you respect the music. Lily closed her eyes and began to play. The prelude flowed from her fingers like water, gentle arpeggios rising and falling, creating a river of sound that carried her forward. As she played, the nervousness melted away, replaced by a deep focus that made everything else fade into the background. There was only the music now, speaking through her in a language older and more profound than words. When she finished the prelude and began the fugue, Lily felt a new confidence. The fugue was like a conversation between different voices, each one entering with the same theme, but then developing its own character. Mr. Gao had helped her understand how to bring out each voice, how to make them speak to each other across the keyboard. As the final notes of the fugue resolved into a perfect C major chord, Lily felt a sense of completion that was almost physical, like reaching the end of a long journey and finding home. She held the chord for exactly the right amount of time, then lifted her hands and let the sound fade naturally into silence. The applause that followed seemed to come from far away. Lily blinked, returning slowly to the present moment, to the concert hall and the audience and the reality of what she had just done. She stood and bowed as Mr. Gao had taught her, then walked off stage on legs that felt strangely wobbly. Backstage, Zoe gave her a quick hug. "That was amazing," she whispered. "Bach would be proud." Lily smiled, still feeling as if she were floating slightly above the ground. The rest of the recital passed in a blur, and soon all the students were filing back on stage. For the final bow, Dr. Powell made a speech about the conservatory's mission and thanked the donors whose generosity made the scholarship program possible. "Music has the power to transform lives," Dr. Powell said, looking out at the audience. "And sometimes it finds its way to those who need it most, regardless of circumstance." She gestured to the students standing behind her. "These young musicians represent the future of classical music in our city. Some come from families with deep musical traditions. Others are the first in their families to study an instrument. All of them share a dedication to their craft that inspires us daily." After the ceremony, the concert hall lobby filled with students, parents, and donors, mingling over punch and cookies. Lily stood next to her mother, accepting congratulations from people she didn't know. "A remarkable performance," said a tall man in a dark suit, "especially for someone who's only been studying formally for 6 months." "Thank you," Lily said shyly. "Lily," she turned to see Mrs. Rivera approaching, accompanied by the teenagers from the hotel. They looked uncomfortable, shuffling their feet and avoiding her eyes. "Mrs. Rivera," Lily said, bowing slightly as her mother had taught her to do with important adults. "Thank you for coming." "I wouldn't have missed it," Mrs. Rivera said warmly. She gestured to the teenagers. "I believe you've met my nephew and his friends." The tall boy who had led the mockery that night stepped forward. He was still tall, still handsome, but something in his expression had changed. "I'm Tyler," he said, holding out his hand. We wanted to say we're sorry for how we acted at the hotel." Lily hesitated, then shook his hand. "It's okay." "It's not," said the girl with straight hair. "We were horrible. And you were amazing. Both times," Tyler added. "But especially today." "That Bach was incredible." Mrs. Rivera smiled approvingly at her nephew. "Sometimes it takes courage to admit when we've been wrong." She turned to Lily's mother. "Your daughter has a remarkable gift, Mrs. Chen. The conservatory is lucky to have her." "I am the lucky one," Lily's mother replied. "To have such a daughter." Mr. Gao appeared beside them, his usually serious face relaxed into a rare smile. "Lily," he said, "there is someone I would like you to meet." He led Lily and her mother to a corner of the lobby where an elderly man sat in a wheelchair. The man had thin white hair and wore a formal suit that seemed slightly too big for his frail frame. "This is Mr. Abramovich," Mr. Gao said. "My teacher many years ago. He came especially to hear you play." The old man looked up at Lily with bright, intelligent eyes. "So," he said, his voice accented but clear, "you are the girl from the hotel. Gao has told me about you." Lily bowed. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Mr. Abramovich studied her face. "You played Bach well today. You found the mathematics in it, yes? But you also found something else. Something beyond the notes." Lily nodded, surprised that he had heard exactly what she had tried to express. "Music is not in the piano," Mr. Abramovich said, tapping his chest. "It is in here. The piano is just the tool." He smiled, revealing slightly crooked teeth. "Some people play for 50 years and never understand this. You understand it already?" "I'm still learning," Lily said. "Always learning," Mr. Abramovich agreed. "Me too, and I am 87 years old." He took her hand in his papery one. "Next year you should play Chopin. Your hands are small yet, but your heart is big enough for Chopin." Dr. Powell joined them, placing a gentle hand on Mr. Abramovich's shoulder. "Giving assignments already, Joseph?" The old man chuckled. "Someone must think ahead for this girl. She has far to go." As they spoke, Lily looked around the crowded lobby, at Zoe chatting with other students, at the donors in their expensive clothes, at Mr. Gao listening respectfully to his former teacher, at her mother standing proudly nearby. 6 months ago, this world had been completely unknown to her. Now somehow she was part of it. Later, as they rode home in the car service, Lily rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "Do you think I'll ever be as good as Mr. Abramovich wants me to be?" Her mother stroked her hair. "I think you'll be exactly as good as Lily Chen is meant to be." Lily smiled, watching the city lights blur past the window. The future stretched before her like a piece of music she was just beginning to learn, complex and challenging but full of possibility. There would be difficult passages ahead, measures that would require practice and patience. But there would also be moments of pure beauty, of connection, of finding her own voice within the notes. For the girl who had once been laughed at for touching a piano, that was more than enough.